In this video, I wanted to share with you something that I just started to work on. I haven't done much, and so this is a pretty new raw project for me. There is a blockchain project called Rysk Finance. I came across them pretty recently. We're at the end of July when I'm recording this. Hopefully it doesn't take me too much longer to get it uploaded. So Rysk Finance are offering a product which is basically a covered call. They're calling it a covered call, and the mechanics are basically the same, although there's maybe a little bit of a twist compared to a traditional a traditional covered call. Because it's a blockchain world, things are always a little bit different. So you should expect things not to be exactly the same if you're already familiar with it. It works a little bit like an option. It's not exactly the same. You have to lock up some tokens, so some sort of collateral, and then on the other side someone will basically offer to buy that, and depending how the price goes, you either get your tokens back or you get given some dollars. Either way you get some sort of something back, and obviously if the market goes well, then you can also make money. But it's not risk free, and it's not like it's perfect. There's obviously somewhere that you lose out, I suppose you could say. If it does really well to the upside, then you might lose out on a lot of upside, and if it goes down a lot, then you're still holding your tokens. If it goes down, you do get paid some sort of premium for taking on some risk and locking up your collateral. That's just kind of how it is. It's quite a cool product anyway. I thought it was worth investigating, and one of the things I thought was interesting was the fact that you get paid whether you kind of win or lose. That's not to say that it's worth it, but you get money either way. And so when I'm investigating it, one of the things that came up is, how do I know if the pricing is correct or not? And of course, when you first look at something, you don't know if the pricing is correct or not. You have to either guess or try to do some calculations. And so I tried to do some calculations inside ChatGPT, which is what I have open. So I have my thread open here where how to price, and the price, essentially the premium that you get paid, which is displayed as an APR inside the Rysk Finance website. I guess I should have done that. Should have brought that up. Rysk Finance. Crap. No. So yeah, let me try to bring this up. So this is the Rysk Finance website, and you can see a minimum APR and a maximum APR, and this is kind of an indication of the price, shall we call it. But when we jump inside, you'll see a bit more what it means. You'll see what it means in dollar terms, not just as percentages. These percentages are a little bit abstract to kind of give you an idea of the risk. So the more volatile an asset is, the more that you should expect the APR to be, essentially. So if we take something like ETH or ETH, if you want to call it that. So we click inside, we see there's a couple of options here near the top of the screen. There's what it says is 4,100, 4,600, 5,500. These are the different strike prices, so these are the different levels that the price must rise to in order for some event to be triggered. The price right now, it's saying, is about 3,700 something, which I'm sure they're just pulling as like, you know, a live rate. So I expect that to be correct. So given that that's where the price is now, these are where the prices might be in the future. And so you could lock up your tokens inside Rysk in order to like collect a premium, and you have to decide whether you think that's worth it or not. For example, you could get a 49% premium if you want to lock it up now, and there's 38 days to wait until you get it back. And so if you want to lock it up, and if the price is at least 4,100, then you're going to get dollars back. And if it's below that, then you get your tokens, your native tokens back. So, and it has to be basically exactly whenever the contract ends, after 38 days and whatever, the hours and seconds are. So the price can move obviously a lot up and down in that time, and it almost doesn't matter how the price moves up and down in that time. It only matters at the very last moment whenever the contracts expire. At least that's how I'm understanding how it's set up and how I believe a lot of these options work. It's a European style option where you can't sell early, at least not now. Maybe in the future they'll allow you to have the other style, the American style. So you can put in the number of tokens, and you can see down here, well, okay, this is showing the 5,000 option. It's a 6% APR, annualized APR, of course. But right now for the 38 days, you'll get paid almost $12. And of course, if you want to go for the annualized rate of 49%, almost 50%, then you're going to be looking at like about $100. So you get $100 up front into your pocket, which sounds nice, I suppose. If the price goes below, or if the price goes above 4,100 and then dips below 4,100 on the last day, then you get all of your tokens back, and you've already got this 100 to keep because that's paid to you up front. Oh, and down at the bottom it even shows you that. Whereas if it goes the other way, then you get back dollars to the amount of whatever you put in. So it's showing you there for 0.5. So that's what it'd be worth in dollar terms if it hits 4,100 on the last day. Of course, if the price goes much, much, much higher, then you don't get anything more. It's basically the person who is on the other side of this would be getting all of the upside, which is some market maker. Now the question is, what I had in my head is, are these APRs correct? How do I know if these APRs are correct? That was one of the first things I was saying to myself, was like, do I think these are an appropriate amount of compensation for the risk that I'm taking? And 49% sounds like a lot, almost 50%, and it does sound quite appealing. But then at the same time, maybe it's not right. Maybe it's not priced in the right way. This is what I was asking myself. And I know that with options, one way to price options is to use the Black-Scholes equation. Black-Scholes, however you meant to say it. And one of the things about the Black-Scholes equation is that it assumes a static volatility. So you put in a figure for the volatility, which is the implied volatility for the period of, here it's going to be 38 days. So you're basically saying, okay, over this 38 days, I think the volatility will be on average some value. And it may be correct. And that you get a price from plugging in some parameters. Now, given that volatility figure is static, in the real world the volatility is not static, it changes, then it means that the price can be incorrect as calculated by a Black-Scholes equation. And so I'm saying to myself, well, if it's incorrect there, or if these numbers here are based upon Black-Scholes, then these numbers are incorrect in that sense. They're underpriced. And that's what I was trying to figure out whenever I was working through the calculations with ChatGPT. I'm using the O3 model, and O3 calculated some figures which were roundabout. It calculated some figures using Black-Scholes, which were roundabout what we see here in the dashboard. So these figures are actually pretty close to being the Black-Scholes figures, these APRs, which to me suggests that they are on the underside. Now, in the Telegram group, the developers are saying that the prices are dynamic. They are created by market makers. There might be more to it than that. I don't remember obviously all of the details. There's probably something in the documentation as well. However, it's I kind of, I don't know what the figures are today, but when I did it there a few days ago, the prices were roughly what you get from Black-Scholes, which is, if I say worrying, it maybe overemphasizes it, and it's maybe not quite the right phrase. There's a chance that they're underpriced, which is a little bit annoying because you want to get paid a fair rate. And it's not that it's wildly incorrect. That's probably not, fair to say that. But it's something which I thought was interesting. It's something I investigated, and I thought a fun task might be to create a dashboard of my own on the back of this, which would basically compare the market APRs that we see here, which could be using any old formula, right? It doesn't have to be Black-Scholes, because obviously Black-Scholes is a theoretical number, whereas these are numbers given by market makers, and maybe they use something else. So I wanted to try and create a dashboard which would compare it and perhaps calculate some other metrics. So what I was showing here earlier in the video is just the very end of my conversation with ChatGPT. And so what I've asked for is, write a spec, output it in Markdown, and I want to basically scrape the data from the Rysk Finance website and then try to calculate like the theoretical APR and compare it, and if there's something else which is interesting. So the output is Markdown, although as always happens in ChatGPT, you get a mix of, or some mix up I should say, in the formatting, such that it will give you Markdown, but because of the way that the characters are escaped, as they call it, then you might get some funny formatting where the escaping is not done correctly. And so it tries to, it tries to figure out that some characters are special characters and they have to be treated in a particular special way, and sometimes they're not done correctly. It gets parsed incorrectly. So that's why the formatting here is a little bit messed up. But you can see that there is, here's a spec document, and the spec document this is the dashboard that I want to build. It doesn't really matter exactly what the details are. It is interesting, but it's something for you to try in your own time. And then later I ask for an implementation plan. So create another Markdown document that is a plan for how we want to build the app. And just to show you here, the exact details don't really matter. It's just the fact that it is suggesting a plan of how to build it. So that these two documents specify what the application is, a little bit of how it should look like, and then how to build it. And so I'm doing this as like a demo of how you might want to approach building apps using AI. This is basically my approach, shall we say. Now I'm going to have a little bit of a twist here, because I could be using Cursor or Windsurf, for example, or even VS Code with the appropriate plugin to do some AI assisted coding. However, what I want to do instead is I want to try Gemini CLI, which I have tried and it's okay. It has some free credits, so every day you get 50 free credits or 50 free requests, something like this. It has an agent mode, so it can burn through the requests pretty quickly, so you have to keep that in mind. But I figured I'd do some sort of demo and see how I get on with the documents that I created, and now here trying to come into Gemini to see how it runs. Now I don't know if this is going to work. It might. I expect it to give me something, but it might not do it well. But let's see. So in my prompt here, I'm saying, okay, there's two documents in this directory. It's a spec and a plan of the web app that I want to create. And I'm saying to it, okay, I want you to read these documents and understand them. So not even to build, but just to read and to think. And I find this to be a good starting point to get the AI onto your side and to put into context, the context window, I should say, some good information about how to build an app. If you give too much control to AI, too much creative freedom, then you can get all sorts of wild ideas and wild implementations, which can then be a bigger pain to fix further down the line. So let me hit return. It's thinking, it's working on something, a little bit back and forward, and it's saying, okay, I read it, and it wants to, oh yeah, there's an update, but that doesn't really matter. We can still do this. Okay, so I've read and understood specification and implementation plan. Great. It seems like a well-defined project, yes, because AI defined it, so it should be well-defined. And yeah, I think it's understood. Okay, so let's go with phase one. Let's start with phase one as according to the plan. Thanks. And let's see what it does. I actually don't remember what the planning document said. Okay, so it is saying to, yeah, okay, so it wants to use TypeScript and it wants to use some template. I'm not super familiar with this, I will be honest. Bootstrapping a new Vite, kind of, how would you pronounce that? It's kind of a very European way perhaps of saying it, Vite. It doesn't sound right, but anyhow. And React. Okay, so allow this execution. Yep. Okay, let's do it. Rather than just banging through like an automatic smash of yes. Oh, something's not installed. Yeah. Let's see if it works. If not, then I'll cut the stream and I'll try to install and see how I get on, because I may have to, right? This is fun, right? No. So yeah, I haven't done any preparation here. All right, okay, maybe not. Let's install a bunch of other stuff. Let's try. Let's see how we get on. And now it wants to write some file. Okay, some of this is out of my depth, I'll be honest. It's not things that I'm super familiar with. But I'm going to let it do its thing and let's see what we get out. Right. What? Why does it want to do get in it? Really does not matter. I'm not expecting to commit this to GitHub anyway, right? Not right now. I mean, eventually, yeah, sure, happy to make this open source, right? But in the initial stage, it doesn't really matter if it's open source, but it will be. It doesn't need to be on GitHub when you're just trying to get started. So I'll be honest, this is not terribly interesting. Make directory GitHub workflows, sure. So it's going to push it to GitHub at some point and then basically host it from GitHub, I think is maybe what it's thinking, which would be fine. All right. Let it do its thing. Go with the vibes, yo. Okay. So it's saying that it's done all that. According to the plan, definition of done for this phase is skeleton app, render hello APR in a Vercel preview. I can't deploy to Vercel. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't need to be deployed to Vercel right now anyway. We can do that later. but I can change the content of the main component display. You can deploy to Vercel later. This microphone's a little bit in the way for the keyboard. And if phase 1 is done well enough, then go to phase 2. Does it matter if that's misspelled? It doesn't really, I guess, but let's change it anyway. Let's see how it gets on, and probably burns through a whole bunch of the free credits. Well, it's kind of one of the nice things that you do get free credits with Gemini CLI, which you can either install from GitHub, so it's open source, or you can even just run it. I guess from wherever it's hosted. It's a little bit of trickery that I'm honestly not entirely sure how it works. Okay. Saying fine. Write a file, so index.js, that's looking good. So this is like proper start to the app. Start creating routes. This looks all kind of familiar to me, even as a noob. These are things I've seen before whenever I've tried to create apps before. I do kind of expect it probably to get so far and then to hit an error, and then I basically have to take the error and throw it into the chat box, and for it to be like, okay, here, fix my error, and hopefully it does. Of course, at some point AI can get itself in a loop and it gets stuck trying to fix an error, and at some point it doesn't really fix it, and at that point a human has to step in and say, okay, you're not really fixing this. And then sometimes you have to use your own brain and try and figure it out, or step away and come back to another day and see if you can come up with it. If with Gemini here, with Gemini 2.5 Pro, at some point you run out of credit and you get downgraded to using Flash, and Flash is not particularly great, if I'm honest. It can do some simple things, but I've had quite a few errors when using 2.5 Flash, so it's kind of hard for me to say, try using it. You can, of course, also, I believe you can use your own API key and therefore pay for each request. It's probably quite expensive, and I don't know if I would recommend that, of course, depending on your budget, but I figured it's worth trying this with free credits, since you can get them anyway, like anyone can get them. Okie dokie. So it's saying doing this as planned. Got placeholders for Chainlink spot price. Chainlink. Wasn't expecting that. It's not even in the app, is it? Is it? No. Okay. Okay, I'll ask it. Why Chainlink? In the Rysk app. Perhaps we should focus on the assets that display themselves. Crap. Can't spell. Inside the Rysk app. But yes, let's move on to phase 3 and let's see where we get to. I know that I should run out of credits before the app is built, but I'm hoping that I can get something built for my free credits. Okay, there's a Black-Scholes library, which means that you don't have to code it yourself, which is, I mean, when I say code it yourself, I mean, obviously you can get API, you can get AI to do that for you, but when there's libraries, it always means someone else has done it, and hopefully that library is correct. Well, let's see. Apply this change, const, blah, 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 blah. Sure. Support 3001. That's all for sure. We're just vibing, right? Just in the vibe, and just hitting yes and letting it do its thing. Let's to see how smart, AI really is, or isn't. And what's it saying? So it's added some API endpoints. Okie dokie. This completes phase 3. I probably even should have read the spec doc fully. I mean, I read it briefly. The implementation plan I didn't really read before, I'll be honest. So I'm a little bit cheeky there, kind of a bit lackadaisical. I don't recommend that, of course. I do recommend actually reading through the spec and the implementation, but I figured I'd just do this for fun. This completes phase 3. The next step is to build the UI, but before that, let's try the endpoints. That sounds good to me. I can add a temporary test file to do this. Sure. Sounds great. I probably could have said yes, but hey ho. It's fine. Yeah, run the server. Sure, why not? Normally I don't bother, and the reason that I don't normally bother is because I have a server running in another tab, but I didn't start that obviously beforehand because the app didn't exist until right now. So sure, let's crack on. What is it saying to me? Sure. Okay, so it's hit some error, and so it's now trying to figure out, okay, what happened. So this is kind of neat. One of the neat things about agents is that they can write code for you. So they can try to read documents, they can write documents as well, they can edit documents, they can then write code into a file and then edit that file later, and then it can check the file and it can try to run the app and say, okay, this app ran or not. And if it gets an error message, it can then look at the error message and try to fix your app based upon the error message that it gets. So that's obviously quite neat. And if you've never used an agent before, or one of these coding agents, then you might be thinking this is like magic, because it does seem like magic. You've basically said to a computer, here's something, some project, go work on it. And it's saying, sure, boss, let me do that for you. Of course, if you've been using Cursor and everything else before, then this is not really magic for you at all. This is maybe just mildly interesting to see how my approach differs from your approach. And it may well be that you have a better approach than I do. This is not my normal approach, I should say. I'm doing this kind of for fun, just to see how it is to work with Gemini CLI, which I have done. I've also used Claude Code, which was also pretty good. The Claude models are probably that bit better than Gemini in general. I would say Claude 4 is probably better than Gemini 2.5, but Gemini 2.5 is pretty good, and it's probably better than, say, Claude 3.5 and kind of much of a muchness when compared to Claude 3.7. I'm thinking of Sonnet. I mean, I don't know the exact differences between Sonnet and Opus. Certainly Opus is meant to be better, but I don't really tend to use that. It's pretty much always Sonnet, and I've been mostly working inside Cursor, if I'm honest. I've also worked a bit inside Windsurf as of today, now that I'm recording this video. And I would have to say that Windsurf is pretty nice, actually. The interface is a little bit nicer on the eyes compared to Cursor. Cursor is a little bit more raw. I don't know if I could say one way or other which one I prefer. I think both are based upon VS Code. They both look very similar to each other. There's just maybe the Windsurf interface is maybe a little bit nicer to look at. It's a little bit more pleasant with the things that it has. In terms of the packages, I mean Cursor. When I say in terms of the packages, but in terms of the I have hit my spending limit. Crud. And so of course it's not going to work. It says, okay, do you want to use the Flash model? And Flash is pretty terrible. And no, I don't really want to be using the Flash model. So I'll maybe either fix this tomorrow, or I will try to import it into Windsurf and see how I get on. What I was about to say is that Cursor have obviously updated their revenue model and their pricing plans and everything, which is a real pain in the ass. And I burned through my requests pretty quickly for this month, so I don't really have any credits left with Cursor. It went faster than I thought. They've changed everything, and I wasn't really prepared. I was kind of caught out, and the communication's been a bit bad. So I figured I'd try Windsurf, where the pricing plans are much more straightforward. It's kind of how Cursor used to be, and it's actually slightly cheaper to use Windsurf if I'm honest, which is kind of interesting. So I don't know if I make the full switch, but let's see. Anyhow, so unfortunately I can't really show you much more, and I will probably have to record a second part